Hello! Today we're going to be working on a card that uses a mechanism from one of the books I like to work out of called Making Mechanical Cards, 25 Paper Engineer Design by Sheila Sturrock. And the design that we're going to be making is the Kaleidoscope dissolving card. And this book gives you all the instructions for making her version of the card in the size that she has it, and at the back there are all the templates that you need to make all of the cards, and it's a really interesting pop-up book, and that's what I'm working from today. So the first thing when making this card is to actually size up the mechanism for the card that you want to make. And what we're aiming for, I don't have a finished one at this point, is something like this. And you're going to see what I've done is actually change. This is one of my early models, and this is the idea we're going for. And you'll see one of the things that I find with making all of these mechanical cards, especially when you're deviating at all from somebody's book plan or their template, is that you do have to try it out a few times, size it, and play with it, and you'll get a finished product that you're happy with. But when you're setting out on your own with these kinds of cards, don't ever expect the first one that you make to be the one that to turn out exactly the way you want it to. So let yourself play, try things out, try sizes, try stamps, try different techniques and bring them together, and in the end you'll end up with something that you're really happy with and you had some fun playing and trying out new ideas. So the first thing that I did was took the template from the book and I sized it to the size I wanted to, and I used my original try there as my template. And so you'll see it works out to about, once you get like this part down to about 2 7/8 is about where I end up. The full circle is a little bit more than that, more closer to 3 1/4, almost 3 1/2 inches. So you'll need to play with the template out of the book to get it to that size. And then you also want to do the matching template for the moving part of the mechanism, and you need to size that up as well. And this gives you a better idea of this one's exactly. If you find the center here and come across, you'll see that this is about 3 1/4. It's a little bit smaller than 3 1/4. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to take a very sharp X-Acto knife, and I work on glass. I find glass is a very good surface to cut on, and cut along all those lines, and you'll need to cut them all out so that you have something that looks like this. And then as well, this mechanism, you want to cut it all out so that it looks something like this. So again, cut out all the lines, cut out in between. Now, the one thing I have found with this particular template and mechanism is that when you are cutting it out the full size, as shown in the template, these tabs work fine at that size. When you work down to the smaller template, when you've sized it down, I find that you need to extend those tabs there out a little bit more in order to hold the paper better and not slide. So that's one point with that. So what you'll have to start with is your cutout card front and your cutout moving picture. The one thing to remember all the time with this particular template is the lines are on the back of your design. So what you have here is this is the front, and you can see it's been cut, and this will be our front of our design, and this has been cut. You need to stamp both of the, you need to cut both of these before you start stamping your image. So the next step in making this card is to set up for the stamping. The best way to do this, because we're going to stamp on this card front and we're going to stamp on this mechanism, is to first create a template that you're going to use to help you mask off and position various elements on this card. So the way I did that was I used my Spelled Up Binders large circle dies and my Cuttlebug, and I picked this particular size circle, and it's the third largest circle in. And the way I picked that was, once I had cut my mechanism, I lined up the spell binders with the closest circle size that sort of fit. So it doesn't have to fit exactly, as long as the guides are somewhere within that space within that moving mechanism. So that gave me my size of circle to cut, and then I cut it in a piece of paper roughly the same size as the front of the card, in roughly the same spot that it is. It doesn't have to be exact, it's just got to protect the rest of your card and give you a window. And you want to keep both pieces of that die cut. You want to keep the circle that you've cut out, and you want to keep the remaining piece as well. Then one of the things you want to be able to do is line up this mask properly, and one of the ways you can do that is by folding this inner circle into 4 pieces. That gives you your center, and then you're going to poke a hole in your center. This will need a hole in it, so you might as well put a hole in that, and you can use either a very fine hole punch, or I use paper piercer. Doesn't really matter, but it needs to be in the center. So make sure that goes in the center. This can also have a hole pierced in the center. There is a mark for it. However, this tends to be a little more difficult because those pieces just sort of push aside. But if you create that hole in the middle, it does make positioning of all of these elements a little bit easier. So then you can sort of see or use your paper piercer, line that up with the center, and there you have your circle lined up where it needs to be. Now, a great little tool, in case you haven't discovered this on your own, is 3M. Just like their sticky notes, they have a tape that's also perfectly removable and safe for your paper, so you can use that to position your template. And then that tells you exactly where this should go. Turn that over. Stick a piece down, a couple pieces of tape so that that doesn't go anywhere. And remove this piece. See? Boop. Just comes right out. And you can see that your masking template is positioned perfectly over the moving element of your card. So now we've got our pieces. We've got our cut moving picture, our cut static picture. We've created our mask, and now we're going to start to do some stamping. So we're going to position the mask on the front of the card. And just line up. You sort of pop the edges out, you line that up. Turn that over. And use our removable tape to stick it in place. And then we are ready to stamp. And you can see I've stamped this image on this particular mask before, so it gives me a pretty good idea of where to line up my stamp. And today I'll be using Spiky by Stampotique, and I've taken her off the block. They typically come on the block, but for classes and various other reasons I Take her off the block. And then we're going to stamp her with some Color Box pigment ink. We're going to get her nice and juicy because we also want to emboss her. So nice and juicy, and we're going to do, even though we only want the head, we're going to do the whole stamp because we actually need the bottom part of the figure for positioning. So I'm going to put her just a little bit up here. You can see she's sort of just above the center line. Give her a good stamp. And there she is. You can see where I've placed her. So the center is here and she's sort of just above that. So that's Spiky. Gibby is another one of the Stampotique stamps. We're going to pull off our mask and our tape. Put some embossing powder on here. Shake off the excess. And use our heat gun very gently. We don't want to distort the paper. So we're going to very gently get that to come out. And she's embossed now. And you can see the paper is a little bit distorted, a wee bit. It's hard to avoid altogether. Try to be as gentle and get it just embossed. And so there's Spiky. Now for the next part, we're going to stamp the next part. We are going to have to put the card, the mechanism of the card together. So what I'm going to do, what I've done is I've taken the full-size template, I've taken one piece and I've colored it red on both sides. Here I'm going to show you that this is the front side, the image side of both, and on the back you can see there's a number 1, and then there's a 1 and a 2, and that tells you the order that this goes together in. So when you put them together, you want the numbers, the printed part of your templates facing you, and you want piece number 1 to cover up the number 1 on the moving picture. And then you put number 1 and number 2 in, sort of go from the back side. Now when you are doing these, and particularly when you do the smaller one, you want to be careful not to bend these little feet too much. So now you've got it like that, and at this point I would turn it to the front side where you get the little diamonds. And then now I've gone over where the cuts are with black markers so you can see where I'm going, and you just take that, bend it back here in the thick part, and then it just slides right into that slot. And when you do it that way, it's your least likelihood for distorting these little feet. Now I've done this one several times and some of them are starting to get a bit bent. But there you go. And then you also want to push through your tab, and that goes like that. And now this is not fixed at the center, so it doesn't move quite as smoothly as it should, but it's not bad. And then you get, and as when it gets the fixed point in the middle, it moves much better. So that's how that goes together.